Florida Republican Governor Rick Scott, who joins us here in Naples. Governor, thanks for being here.
Hope you're enjoying our beautiful weather here. It's going to be a lot colder next week in D.C. I think you're having snow tomorrow, aren't you?
That's right. That's exactly right. We're trying to stay here as long as possible. But, Governor, thanks for coming. What about this wet foot, dry foot switch, and what's your reaction to it?
Well, first off, it's classic Barack Obama. He doesn't talk to Congress. He doesn't talk to members of our Congress that have Cuban descent. Doesn't ask for any advice. He's coddling up to a dictator, somebody that arrested 10,000 people last year. And he's not thinking about the people that are still being persecuted. We clearly have to work all across the world and come up with a better immigration policy in America. But we've got to take care of those people that are trying to leave the Raul Castro tyranny, and all these people being arrested and beaten up. The ladies in white are even being beaten up now.
So when the administration says something had to change, something had to be different because the policy wasn't working after 50 years, how do you respond?
Well, first off, nothing changed for them. Raul Castro is still a dictator. He's not been elected by a democracy. There's no political freedom. He's arrested 10,000 people last year. He's elected, he's doing all the things. There's nothing that's changed for the better since Barack Obama did what he did. And now what he said is that if you're trying to leave that dictatorship, there's no home in America. So he needs to work and come up with a much smarter policy. And look, I believe Donald Trump's going to do it. I'm going to work with him. I just sent a letter to Raul Castro the other day saying, you have a choice. You can continue the path you're going down where there's no freedom, there's no economy, or you can have the biggest economic growth in the world right now if you turn to a democracy.
Have you talked to the president-elect about this? Do you think the policy is going to change?
Absolutely. I think the policy is going to change. I'm going to do everything I can. Donald Trump has been a friend for a long time. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure I help him with regard to coming up with a policy in Cuba that's good for Cubans and good for all the people from Cuba that live right here in Florida.
Okay, I want to turn to Obamacare. What happened in the House today kind of cleared the way for repeal and replace. You've been an advocate for that. You sent a letter to Congress. At the end of it, you say the time for major change in health care is now, not 6 months or 2 years from now. I guess the biggest question, Governor, is when's the replace part going to get ironed out? Do you have any sense of that?
Well, let's remember, Obamacare was sold on a bunch of lies. All right, it has done the opposite of what it's supposed to do. People can't afford their health care today. I mean, these exchanges have big deductibles, so they might have an insurance policy. They're not getting the health care that they deserve. We've got to come up with a plan to, one, give states rights and more flexibility with regard to Medicaid so we can afford it. Two, have something that's going to drive down the cost of health care so more people actually can afford their health care, whether it's you as a consumer, you as a business, or our taxpayers. So I think they need to do it as quickly as possible to come up, because it's also hurting our economy in our state.
But it doesn't sound like Republicans are singing from the same sheet of music, at least not yet. And it's been, 7 years to come up with one plan. Is that fair criticism that there's not one plan, and then when Democrats say this is chaos on policy front, that they're politically making points?
I'm very optimistic. I think they're going to do it very quickly. Clearly there's going to be some differences of opinion, but I believe they're going to come up with a plan that's going to give states flexibility with regard to Medicaid and also drive down the cost of health care, which is the biggest issue, and that's when they started with Obamacare, but it was sold on complete lies.
When you hear Congressman John Lewis say that this president incoming is not legitimate, what's your reaction?
I'm very disappointed in him. We have a president that was lawfully elected. We had an honest, fair election in our state. We all need to rally around this president and make sure Donald Trump is very successful for our kids, your kids. I have grandkids. I want this to be the greatest country in the world. We all, tried to do everything we could to make sure Barack Obama was successful. We need to do the same thing with Donald Trump.
You're a businessman. You became governor. What about the split between his business and his presidency?
I think he's going to do basically what I did. Try to put yourself in a position where you don't have conflicts. I put my assets in a blind trust, so no one can say I had any conflicts. I think he'll figure out what to do to make sure he doesn't have conflicts. I mean, you just don't want to put yourself in that position.
Lastly, you have to go to some funerals coming up, police officers.
Well, we could go Friday. We had the shooting down in Fort Lauderdale Airport, and that was devastating for those families. We lost 5 families, and then we had 5 families in the hospital that were shot. And then on Monday, I had 2 law enforcement officers die. One shot by somebody had killed his girlfriend a month before, another one just in a traffic accident. So I'll be doing that on tomorrow and on Monday, and your just heart goes out to him.
The president-elect tweeted out about a funeral in New York. Law enforcement, it seems, is going to take a different focus in the Trump administration?
I can tell you right after the shooting in Fort Lauderdale, the president and vice president called me, and they asked me to give them updates. I think he's going to be very supportive of law enforcement, just like he's going to be very supportive of our military.
Governor Scott, thanks for the time.